that, the black one is the common spellings version and the blue one is the Cassidy JLU.
Come and me teach you patois now.
Hello everyone, welcome to Shan's Patois Academy, Jamaican Patois Simplified. My name is Shan, your Jamaican Patois teacher from Jamaica. Today we have with us Mr. Eric Rosenfeld, the author of one of my favorite Jamaican Patois resources, the Jamaicasaurus. I'm so excited that he came on today. So Mr. Eric, can I call you Eric?
Mm-hmm. Sure, of course.
Eric, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule, to join us. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's get into these questions then. The first question I usually ask everyone is just tell us about yourself. What would you like the viewers to know about Eric?
Well, right now I'm living in Germany, but I'm from Los Angeles, from the United States. And when I was 13 years old, which now was a long time ago, I heard a song, and it was the first time I was exposed to Jamaican patois in music. Well, it was the first time I was exposed to it at all, and I didn't know it existed. And I just found it fascinating. I've always been kind of a person who pays close attention to accent and languages and things like this. And then through that, I got to know about reggae music. And then I sort of wanted to always go to Jamaica. And when I was in high school in the 12th grade, I had a chance to do an exchange program, a foreign exchange program. And I tried to go to Jamaica to find a house, that was available where I could live with the family and go to school in Jamaica for the year. But unfortunately, being a small island, they didn't have any families that were available for me. So I went to Brazil instead and learned to speak Portuguese. But I never forgot the plan to go there. And so, eventually I did, a couple of years later. And I spent, as many months as I could in Jamaica, and then went back to California and eventually came back again to Jamaica much later. But in between all that time, I just made a lot of Jamaican friends. And in California and later in Hawaii, where I moved to. And I find myself almost like starting to sort of speak more in a Jamaican accent just as I'm talking with you, because it's like, I'm with a Jamaican, sort of my voice wants to go there,
But please go there, and use the Jamaican patois too. I don't mind.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not sure if I can cut it because a long time, they are Germany and thing, and we'll see what happens. So I got this idea that as I was teaching myself patois in a sense, using YouTube, this was starting around 2007. Obviously, I was already familiar with the dialect from having lived in Jamaica, some months, and from having listened to so much reggae music. Yeah, of course, I was familiar with a lot of words and I could understand certain things and whatnot. But, you really can't speak it, believably among Jamaican people unless you really find a way to truly learn it. And so that's what I started to do. And I was, this is sometime around 2007, 2008, 2009. I was watching everything I could get my hands on YouTube or online that had to do with patois. And I was even creating like lessons for myself. I would record videos or things from even live shows in Jamaica with somebody, kind of emceeing and talking and chatting. And then I would like put those in a sound file and I would leave gaps in between each thing I said, so that as I drove my car around in Hawaii and listened to this, I would like repeat after what they were saying. And I just got much more comfortable, speaking it. And then when I went back to Jamaica again later on, I really could talk to people in patois without it being funny sounding. They oftentimes assumed that I was, that I was from there originally or something, or that I had lived there most of my life. And so, of course, I have an accent. I'm a foreigner, so I'm not going to speak Jamaican exactly like a Jamaican. But people in Jamaica are not used to hearing a foreigner speak that well, or to know so much. So. I know maybe these are some questions you would ask me separately. What do I want people to know about me?
No, it's fine. It's fine. If you go on, it's fine. So You went to Brazil.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. How long did you stay there? It was you said a study abroad program?
Yeah, AFS, American Field Service. So at the age of 17, I went to Rio de Janeiro and lived with a family there's actually another town across the bay from Rio called Niterói. And I lived with a family there and went to school for the year. And I continued listening to reggae. I brought so much reggae music with me when I went to Brazil. And at that time, because this was 1989, they didn't really have much there because there were kind of controls on how much you could import from other countries. And so, yeah, they had only the artists that were officially allowed to be distributed by Brazilian record labels. And that was like Jimmy Cliff, Bob Marley, and a couple of others. But I brought this bag full of, Burning Spear and the Meditations, and all this stuff that was kind of from the 70s and 80s and whatnot. And the funny thing is, until this day, I find out that like Niterói was one of the main places where reggae music got into the Brazilian population and they started listening to it. And soon after that, the blockades for imports from, foreign record labels were finished, and all this music was able to come into the country. And all these Brazilian people got into reggae and they started playing their own reggae, and it became a whole scene down there after I left. And it's funny because I look at comments on videos on YouTube now with reggae music, and there's so many Brazilians commenting, and a lot of them are saying like, oh yeah, I remember when I first heard this song back in the early 90s in Niterói, somebody had brought it there. I'm like, I brought it. It was me. I was getting it out to as many surfers that were at the beach as I possibly could, because they were the ones who kind of, their sort of Ital lifestyle and everything like that, always being in nature, they were kind of digging on roots reggae. So I think that's where it started for some things. I'm not going to say I'm responsible for it completely blowing up in Brazil, but maybe in that sector, that area, I think I had some influence. So
that's good. You're an ambassador and you didn't even know it.
And I should point out that I've been a radio DJ in Hawaii on public radio, and one of my shows was Brazilian music, and the other show that I had weekly was a reggae show. And so I got involved in Hawaii also in recording some of my own tracks, singing and stuff like that. And
you produce music as well?
Yeah, kind of. Like I didn't have a band, but I was taking some old reggae dubs, and I was doing my own vocals and my own lyrics over them, and sometimes talking about things that are happening in Hawaii that are cultural, that are issues, and I was trying sometimes to do stuff in Hawaiian language, sometimes in Patois. I did one song with Pato Bantan, who was a very popular reggae artist in the late 80s and early 90s out of England, out of the Jamaican communities, immigrant communities in England. And he was kind of a contemporary of Steel Pulse and UB40 and some of these artists. And he did songs with those artists too. And he and I, back in 2011, 2012, we recorded a song together that I wrote in Patois called Strip Mall Culture. And it's about stuff happening in Hawaii, but it's in Patois, which is, I think people in Hawaii really dig Patois. So I thought making a song about what's going on in Hawaii, but in Patois, and they like Pato Bantan too, would be interesting.
Song available? Is it available? Like, can you send me like a link or something so I can insert it here? I'm kind of curious to see what that's like.
It's on YouTube, yeah. Strip Mall Culture. Okay. And also another.
Bless up Pato Bantan, make we dig up the country.
Yes, a country. Big up the Hawaii Islands, the Hawaii Liberty. And much respect every time, Let me not tell you, man.
Every time.
Go on.
Strip mall culture, taking over.
Okay. And also another track called Hau'ula Hau'ula, which is about a place in Hawaii. That one's in Hawaiian Pidgin. The Pidgin dialect in Hawaii.
Hau'ula Hau'ula, Hau'ula side, that's the place I stay, right between Punalu and
that one's in Hawaiian Pidgin. The Pidgin dialect in Hawaii is actually similar to Patois in its history and how it formed. So it has some interesting, this is one of the reasons that Hawaiians kind of like Patois a lot. And yeah. Oh, there's so much to talk about. I keep getting sidetracked.
That's fine. I didn't even know that like Patois was, so well received in Hawaii.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, they love reggae music and they love patois because it sort of reminds them of their own pidgin dialect, and but I think they think it's more cool than pidgin, like you know
I
how it
guess
is.
yeah, because I've never really heard of the Hawaiian pidgin, but I guess because Jamaican music is so worldwide, it's
Mm,
so popular. A lot of people associate Jamaica with or Jamaican culture, the language and stuff with being
mm.
cool in there,
Exactly.
and it's kind of like well, it's kind of like going against the norm, you know. So
Mm,
only cool people would try to get outside of the box, kind of thing.
mhm,
So that's
mhm.
how they view it, like, oh, it's so cool or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's why I started putting together the Jamaicasaurus, because as I was really trying to get fluent in Jamaican patois on my own, as I was expanding the words that I was getting to know through different videos and talking to some people and hanging out with Jamaican friends, I would always write them down. But instead of going from the patois word to English, I would start with the English word so that I could search for words that I wanted to remember how to say in patois, and I could look in English first. And so I think that this is a kind of a revolutionary, in a way. Maybe that's too strong of a word, but Jamaican people had for a long time created vocabulary lists, and Jamaican word lists and Jamaican phrases, but it always started from patois and then to English. So that's really only for you to understand. If you hear something in patois, then you can look at that. But if you want to know how to speak patois yourself, there was no resources for people to look at that would start with English and then give you the word. And so I saw that there was an opportunity to create a book there. And at first I thought, oh, I could make some money with my, whatever, because I've always been a kind of person that I can't really seem to hold a 9 to 5 job. I'm just too scatterbrained, and so I thought maybe this is some way I can survive because I'm not making much money and I'm struggling. But the truth is, and a lot of people don't know this, it's really hard to make money from books unless you're selling like a huge amount of books, and
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 Jamaican patois is so niche. It's
yeah,
the
yeah.
thing that I noticed is when I wanted to start this channel, I needed
Mhm,
resources as well, and I found, like, even though I speak Jamaican patois, I speak
mhm,
English, both native levels, so it's
mhm,
easy to translate in my head. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
But I still needed resources to explain certain
mhm,
things, and it was difficult to find um resources, and this was like 2020, and it was still difficult. But when I came across the books online, they were really good books, but the reviews on the books, like, you can tell when a book is selling a lot, right?
mhm.
Because you have more reviews and stuff
A
like
lot of
that.
reviews, yeah.
And but because Jamaican patois is so niche, and
Mm,
you have a small group of people really interested
mm,
enough to purchase books or to pay
mhm,
for
yeah.
lessons. And a lot of people are like, they start off being interested because they think it's cool, or for whatever reason, but they don't continue long term because of
Mm,
the benefits. Like, well, I don't really need this for a job, or this isn't going
mhm,
to help me make money, or the incentive to continue studying or to study seriously or to invest in your studies isn't there. So they're not going to purchase a lot of resources.
mhm.
I've seen that because I recommend your books to a lot of my students, but a lot of them are not in it for the long term, where they're going to invest. you
Mhm.
know
Yeah,
they
yeah.
just want to be able to understand this song, or
But I think people should be encouraged, however possible, to learn this dialect. I mean, maybe it's not my place to say this as a non-Jamaican. Maybe a lot of Jamaicans would say, no way, we don't want foreigners speaking our dialect. It's our thing. The reason why I say that maybe it's a good thing for foreigners to learn is that Jamaicans can benefit from that. There's a kind of fear, I think, or a little bit of a suspicion among Jamaicans that if foreigners start learning to speak the dialect, that this will take something from Jamaicans and that they'll lose control of it and it'll go into the hands of people in other countries. But I mean, like French, for example, is a foreign language that many people want to learn. Nobody, no matter how long people have been speaking French in other countries or teaching French, even though they're not French people. You know, I mean, you have Germans teaching French and you have English speakers teaching French. Still, French people are the ones who benefit the most. You know, somebody who wants to learn French will always go to a French person first if they have a choice. And so, you know, that's true with any foreign language that's taught. And so, you know, I'm not saying that Jamaica should necessarily do this or do that. That's up to Jamaicans. You know, I just think it could be a good thing for Jamaican people, because if it really caught on for some reason, if it became something that people knew they could learn and wanted to then learn, because in some ways, I'm going to say this is just a side thing. I think Jamaican patois is actually kind of almost the perfect international language if we could choose one, because it's really efficient and you can say a lot in a short time, and it's not that hard to learn grammatically compared to like standard English or something. But there's been no reason for that to happen right now, but it would be, you know, if it could be in a sense. And so I guess what I'm saying is that Jamaicans could find economic opportunities to teach, you know, and to write more books and to make more resources. And Jamaican people are very creative and entrepreneuring. And so, you know, it's like what you're doing, for example. You know, I just think that's not something to really fear that somebody else is going to take it away, because if there's really a desire for things, then they're always going to go to a Jamaican first as the ultimate expert, you know. So
let's backtrack a little bit. Why do you think that, or why do you say that when you were studying or speaking Jamaican patois, did you get the impression that Jamaicans don't want foreigners speaking Jamaican patois?
Yeah.
You got it?
But not so much from just people that I would meet or speak to, but
from
more
Jamaicans.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it is more like, you know, you see comments on maybe some kind of video I made that I posted or anything that I posted about the book or about, you know, whatever. There would be occasional comments from Jamaicans saying, hey, this is our thing, you know, they're trying to take it over. You know, it's this kind of thing like, oh, the colonialization and the, you know, exploitation of Jamaican people by foreigners. It's kind of like they were connecting that somehow to what I was doing or something. But that wasn't a real common comment, but I'd see something like that occasionally. And sometimes Jamaicans would then, in the same thread of comments, would come to my defense and say, hey, don't feel no way, you know, and I make no people bad you, you know, and bad mind you, you know, and stuff. And, you know, them full of bad mind, you know, and make them go on, you do your thing, you know, so just don't, you know.
The reason I ask you that question is I have students, right? I teach Jamaican patois online. I have one-on-one classes sometimes with some people. Nowadays, it's not so much because of time, but I have been teaching like people from many different countries, right? And I find that the people who want to learn Jamaican patois are usually people who love reggae music, or a lot of those people though are people who are feeling disconnected from Jamaica, like their parents are Jamaican or grandparents
are Jamaican. Important. Yeah, that's where I think that there's the most reason to get a book like the one that I wrote is if you have Jamaican parents or Jamaican grandparents and you feel like it's kind of part of your culture, but you never really learned to speak it. You know,
they're in some environments where they've never learned it, not just like the US or the UK, but people from other countries too who have Jamaican parents. And you know, there's this identity there's this identity thing that happens when you are not from a country, and after a while, the older you get, you start to search for yourself, and that's what brings a lot of people to Jamaican patois, because they can identify with being Jamaican, and Jamaica is very inclusive in that sense. But I've had students who say that they don't want to use Jamaican patois. They don't want to make songs in Jamaican patois. Even though it's a passion for them, they don't want to do it because they feel like an imposter, or they feel like, you know, this whole
let me speak to that.
Cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation kind of debate that's going on. So even like, you know, you've experienced it when you're speaking Jamaican patois. Maybe it's coming from a place of appreciation, but then there's gonna be those persons who say the language is ours, you shouldn't be using it and all of that. But who gets to say who uses the language and who doesn't. You know?
Yeah, I really think this is a very, very important conversation to have. You know, Jamaican patois could be even some Jamaicans will say this. You know, they'll, you know, people who are well educated on the subject, maybe they've got a linguistic background even at the university in Jamaica or something, will say, oh, it's just like any language when you look at it technically. It has its grammar, it has its rules that people follow, even if it's not taught in classrooms. And so we should think of it as just any other language, and it's the national language of Jamaica. It should be made official. It should be, you know, standardized, etc. And then you have Jamaicans that say, no, that's a few thing. Nobody can take away patois from we, you know. And so, you know, this is our cultural identity. And if you speak it, if you're a foreigner.
There's another group though. There's another group who think that it's not even a language. Why are we wasting time on this?
That's a big group. Yeah, that's
right?
Like a lot. That might be most people. Yeah.
Right. And even Jamaicans. So I understand, like there's a group of us that wants to protect it because we know how important it is. And the experience that you're having, I understand it because a lot of times when we hear foreigners using Jamaican patois, it's kind of in a gimmicks kind of way. And it's kind of like they're making fun of us. And in those sense, I get it. Like, I don't want you to be using the language if you're going to make fun of me. Right?
Like a tourist going, yaman, like Irie. Yeah.
And not even in those sense, like somebody just, you know, reggae music is kind of like the foundation for a lot of music. Like Jamaica has produced so many different genres of music. We don't
Are you
really
talking about like artists speaking patois but doing it wrong and not really being able to pull it off?
No, I'm talking like artists who use Jamaican patois for economical benefits only, not understanding the culture at all, not appreciating the culture at all, just using it for the hype in the moment. You've seen many people, I don't want to call names because I haven't spoken to persons who, and I don't know their intentions, right? But you have some people who use it, they'll make fun of us when they're using it. And in that sense, that's why a lot of Jamaicans who really appreciate it are very protective of it. Because I don't want to teach you something that's dear to me and then you misuse it, you know? So I understand that aspect of it as well.
I would say, you know, I would say mostly I've gotten a positive response from Jamaican people because they can see clearly that I'm making an effort to really know and understand and respect the dialect and the culture, right? And also it's because I waited until I really knew a lot of things before I really went out there and tried to speak to people for the first time. And I started with just some friends that I made, you know, and, you know, at first it's kind of like, oh, people rolling their eyes, you know, at me and saying, oh, you don't get it or whatever. And then they would just go speak to me in standard English and whatnot. But I kind of got past that point where I still kept trying. I didn't give up. You know, and then at a certain point, like some of my Jamaican friends just thought, okay, we'll speak to him in patois because he clearly has learned enough. He can kind of get by. And what I got even better than that, and then I went back to Jamaica again in 2014. It was like I would just catch taxis or just talk to people on the street and just speak in patois, you know, and it was amazing. I mean, it was wonderful. It was such a great feeling to be able to communicate with Jamaicans in patois, which was always like my dream when I was younger because I loved it so much. I felt like when I was younger and I would listen to the music and, you know, or hear people speaking patois, to me, it was like watching people doing a dance that looks like a lot of fun. And I really want to join in and I want to start dancing too, you know? I try to make this book useful for Jamaicans as well, or interesting at least. And especially by having as many synonyms as I can possibly get. So I'm trying to collect them from all sources all over, you know, from media, from old movies, from books that other people have written and everything. But there's always this self-consciousness in my mind, like I must be leaving quite a few out. And it seems almost limitless, the amount of new words that Jamaicans can create for something, especially for certain topics. So that's always a challenge. I mean, I might have, you know, now at this point, something like 60 words, translations for certain body parts or, you know, for sex or something like that, you know, and even a lot for other subjects that are not so funny or so, you know, that argument will keep on coming up. But you know, another argument that comes up that's very relevant to this what we're talking about today is how to spell Jamaican words, and why I wrote two different versions of the book. And you know, the common spellings, as I call it, that most Jamaicans use, they vary a lot. You know, people change the way they spell things depending on their own personal taste or whatever. And so the idea of following a spelling system that can be agreed upon by all Jamaicans is something that developed in the University of the West Indies, but that doesn't mean it's going to catch on in the general population. So, you know, it's sort of like I'm writing one version of the book for the people who are on the forefront of trying to promote patois as a language and to have a standardized spelling system. And then the other version of the book with the black cover for just everybody else, right? And I tried to,
Go ahead.
no, I tried to combine them a little bit. You know, there's a tendency for people on one who favor the one spelling system to kind of keep it as separate as possible from the other system. And I kind of think that's counterproductive. I think maybe people can come to accept this so-called Cassidy system or this JLU system that was developed by Jamaican linguists in the university systems, that maybe they could come to accept it more if it were a little bit more similar in some ways that would be harmless. You know, I argue in the introduction to the book why I think these slight changes are relatively harmless to the system, but they can make it a little bit easier to read from the viewpoint of, you know, the average Jamaican person. And I try to see maybe it could promote in some way that JLU system without necessarily forcing people to use it, you know.
The thing about the Cassidy JLU system is I like it for non-Jamaicans learning Jamaican patois because of the consistency that it provides.
Right.
So you know that this letter has this sound and that's it.
Right.
Whereas when we use the English spellings to accommodate the sounds, it can be different. Different people will
and foreigners won't know how to read it. Yeah,
exactly. So the Cassidy JLU system is easier for foreigners, in my opinion. Why I think a lot of people think it's hard is because we're reading Cassidy JLU with the English alphabet mindset. So we have to learn Cassidy JLU by itself, like we're learning Spanish, the Spanish alphabet or the French alphabet. We have to learn it by itself before we start reading it. And I found the Jamaican Patois Bible, the Jamaican New Testament, to be really good because that book, throughout it's the only, they use Cassidy JLU. So once you start reading it, you pick it up easily because it's so consistent. So for the non-Jamaican wanting to learn Jamaican Patois, I recommend it. I encourage that. But also we cannot leave out the common spelling because so many Jamaican Patois works before Cassidy JLU became popular is important. Miss Lou never used Cassidy JLU, right? So many other authors, older authors, who wrote in Jamaican Patois or who wrote excerpts in their book in Jamaican Patois or stuff like that, they weren't using the Cassidy JLU. So we cannot, like, even in my videos now when I'm teaching Jamaican Patois, I try to use both, like the common spellings and the Cassidy JLU spelling. And I make a lot of mistakes with the Cassidy JLU because it's so new to everybody, you know. But I encourage the use of both. I will not put one above the other.
And it's easy. Even though a lot of people say, oh, that looks really complicated, those are the Jamaicans who are used to spelling things the English way, and they're just not even trying. If they would just take a little time to try, they would find out, oh, actually, this is really easy to learn. You just have to open your mind for a short time, you know. And I tried to put a guide to that in the intro of my book to make it as simple as possible. And I think it really is pretty simple. What do you think?
I like it. The problem I have with it is that because it's so phonetic, I might pronounce something a little bit different than somebody. I'm from St. Catherine, so I might pronounce a word different from somebody in St. Elizabeth. And if you're spelling what you hear, if some words, you're gonna probably want to change the O to you or something like that. So some people say yo, like you eat already, while some people say you eat already. So it yo and you in the Cassidy JLU, yo would be yo, while you would be yu. So in that sense, it's a little bit difficult. So without like a dictionary to say this one is the correct one, it's going to be hard because people are going to just write what they hear. And some people hear different things. We actually say different things in some cases. So that's what makes it challenging, even for me. I use this book a lot. I use the Jamaicasaurus a lot, and I use the Patois Bible to find even the little words, to find how they spell them or how you spelled it, to see like what's consistent.
Did you figure out what was different between my way and the one by that they use for the Bible? Did you notice what the difference is?
There are some differences, but the Bible, well, actually, there's not much difference with this one.
They're very similar. There's almost no difference. It's just the main thing that I do is that I just go ahead and keep the H on the short, extremely common Jamaican words you and de. I spell de as D-E-H instead of just D-E.
D-E.
And that's because Jamaicans coming to the Cassidy spelling system for the first time think that de looks kind of too similar to how they would pronounce D for like the, you know, for like D-I. And they're so used to seeing it with the H on the end. And it, to me, it seems like if you just do that for a couple of words, it's not going to change the system so much, you know? So I just, you know, oh, no, I don't keep the H for you, sorry. I keep it as YU because a lot of Jamaicans will also spell it YU, even if they're not doing Cassidy. But de and a couple of others, I think, I don't even remember which ones, but, you know, very common, like de and na, you know, they're kind of like keep the H on the end. Or in OW, some Jamaicans feel like any words in it that are normally spelled with OW, like how, like oh you mean, or oh you do, you know, how you do, they would spell it in Cassidy's OU. And I keep the W because it just visually looks much more similar to how in English, and I don't think it hurts anything, you know. It's like there are going to be some words with W instead of U, so what, you know. It makes it that much easier to sort of sight read it from the Jamaican perspective. So yeah, there's just a couple of differences like that. They're minor, you know.
But yeah, it's I think they're both spellings are important. Moving forward, it would be good if more people could use the Cassidy JLU for the consistency that it provides. But like I said, I use both and I encourage people to learn both. But for non-Jamaicans trying to learn Jamaican Patois and trying to start from like an alphabet, the Cassidy JLU is definitely easier.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, and also a lot of people wanting to learn Patois are not even English speakers. And as a matter of fact, people whose native language is not English have a much easier time learning Patois because they tend to see it just as a language, you know, as another foreign language. And so they don't feel as self-conscious about speaking it or using it. To them, it's just like learning. Like if I were to try to learn a Caribbean dialect of French, for example, you know, from Martinique or from Haiti or something, to me, that would just seem like learning another kind of French. It's a foreign language to me. I don't already speak French, let's say. So yeah, so for somebody who comes from Germany or France or Spain and they move to Jamaica and they, you know, start speaking Patois, it seems only natural that they would, you know, because they're surrounded with it. And well, unless they already speak English, but if they don't already speak English, then they have a reason to speak Patois, you know, already, you know, so they don't maybe feel as self-conscious about it. It just seems normal to them.
Okay, here's a question then. Why did you write this book, and what are some of the challenges that you had in the process? And you can tell us about, I mean, we've been talking about the book for a while, but you can go more in depth with it. I actually bought both versions because I bought the English spelling version first, and then I realized there was a Jamaican spelling version. So I had to get the Jamaican spelling version because that's where I have a lot of challenges with the spelling. But can you tell us about the book?
So I mean, you can't really see that easily through a camera, you know, but I mean, the majority of words don't have that many translations into Jamaican patois. So in that sense, it's more like an English to patois dictionary, because it only really becomes like a thesaurus when I can list a lot of translations in Jamaican. But there are so many things that can be said in a Jamaican way that's different from the English way. You know, because I try not to include words here that just sound like saying the English word with a Jamaican accent. You know, I try to put translations that truly are different from English. So if there's, for example, I can't think of one right off the top of my head, but if there's a word that, say, Jamaicans will just use the same word in English, you know, the same word in Jamaican patois that they would use in English, but just pronounced with a Jamaican accent, and, you know, and it's not really truly different from English, well, then there isn't much reason to put that in the book, you know. If there's another word that could be used that's more truly unique, you know, and truly Jamaican and not used in other countries, right? And so, you know, like I'm looking right now, like perceive, you know, how do you say perceive in patois? Well, you probably could find a lot of Jamaicans who would just say perceive, you know, but what I listed was pick up pan or penny, you know. Yeah, man, me pick up on that, you know, I perceived that, you know what I mean? I saw that.
Look
So
like, or come in like, or something like that.
yeah, come in like instead of, you know, look like or whatever, you know. So pharmacy, you know, sure, maybe you could call something a pharmacy in Jamaica, but there's also a patois term, which is doctor shop, you know. And maybe that's an old way of speaking. That younger people in Jamaicans maybe young Jamaicans wouldn't say that anymore, you know. Where the doctor shop there? Yeah, man, over this up on the corner, you know, like it's just like
that sound like the older generation. Nowadays, young people will say pharmacy.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So
yeah.
this book may have a lot of things that you know, younger generation Jamaicans might not even say, but hey, I'm trying to capture them in this book, you know, put them all in one place, you know.
You know, it's so interesting that the generations in Jamaica have such different language, because somebody, I saw this on, sorry, I just interrupted you talking about the book, but we'll go back to that. I saw this on was it Instagram recently? Somebody said, it's been a while since I heard somebody say booyaka.
Booyaka.
And there were
because things come and go, right? Jamaican patois words come and go.
There were some younger Jamaicans in the comments saying, what is that? I've never heard that before. And I'm like,
yeah. And that's a trouble with this book, is that sometimes things that I put in the book might have a short lifespan and then they're gone and people don't say them anymore. But, you know, you can try to put words in there that still remain, you know, at least among some people. And I should actually hold these two up and just point out that, you know, the black one is the common spellings version and the blue one is the Cassidy JLU spellings version. And, you know, the other thing about the book is, you know, in addition to trying to make it both an English to patois translation dictionary as well as a thesaurus, some people might say, oh, that's not truly a thesaurus because you should list the head words should be in patois. But the difficulty with that is that there isn't an agreed, I could do that maybe for the Cassidy JLU version, but for the common spellings version, there isn't really an agreed upon spelling for a lot of things like that. But it's easy enough for a Jamaican person to just find the English word that means the same thing as what they're thinking in patois, you know? So maybe I need to someday make a truly Jamaican thesaurus where the head words are all patois also. But for now, this is what we've got. That's the only thing that could work as a Jamaican thesaurus. And so it's what we've got for it. What else can I say about the book? It has in the back in the appendix some really fun things. It has lists of, this is the common spellings or English spellings version, but it has lists of exclamations and kind of from mild to vulgar expletives and exclamations to these things can be fun, you know? So I listed them in the back of the book. And then there's this long list of plants and trees that are used in Jamaican culture, you know, in cooking and medicine and construction. And there's just, you know, there's several pages of this. So, yeah. What else should I mention about the book? I think that's pretty much it.
How long did it take you to put this together?
Well, you know, it's hard to know how long it would have taken if I just worked on it nonstop, because I would just kind of put it aside for a while, and then I would come to it again and then put it aside again for a while. But it ended up being an 8-year process of this sort of working on it sometimes and then putting it aside for a little bit. It wasn't until one of the University of the West Indies in Jamaica professors, Joseph Farquharson, kind of gave me the incentive to really finish the book in 2016, where it needed to be done by a certain time so that he wanted to get it published in Jamaica. And and then I just put my head down and worked on it for 3 months nonstop, day in and day out, 16 hours a day. And then it was done, but it was never really truly done because I kept on adding more and updating it, and ever since, right? So.
Because you have 5 contributing editors and consultants here.
Right.
And I recognize this name, the Larry Chang, because I also have a book from him. Like I have a little Jamaican library.
Yeah.
So I do have quite a few Jamaican Power books because I bought a lot of them to do some research to kind of make sure that what I was putting out was kind of, not just what I thought, but I had some form of sources. But I recommend this book. It has the most entries I've seen. And like I said, I have a lot of books with like lists of vocabulary and stuff like that. And they're great, but I use this one the most. And I stay recommending it because it's really good.
Cool.
So thank you for actually putting in the effort, because I know writing a book is not easy. It's not easy at all. And especially when it's something like this where you have to kind of be accurate with the translation. So you have to do a lot more research. It's not just writing what you feel, but this one has to be kind of factual. So you have to, do a lot more research in it. So it's a good resource. It's one of the best Jamaican power resources right now.
Well, I really made an effort to make it as good as it could be, and to leave nothing out, and maybe I could say I didn't write it, I compiled it. I got words from every source that I could, and including those contributors that you see listed there. And it's ultimately whether I or not I thought initially when it first came to my mind to put together a book this way, that was many years ago. Even if back then I thought that maybe it could be a way to make a little bit of money for myself, I soon realized that was not going to be the case, that it's going to take way, way more work than I would probably be able to get, money back for. So in the end, it's really become more of just a kind of labor of love and a contribution, and I kind of hope though that if it could sell more copies, that I could do further work. Like I would like to make a Jamaican phrase book, out of this book. And that's kind of more like phrases rather than words, or I'd like to make it into an audio-based app, and even have like a Google Translate kind of thing. And, my book could be used to help get that started, right? I've even thought of ways to try to crowdfund to raise money to support Jamaican communities that maybe need some type of funding for, medical clinics or things like that, where people would propose giving a certain amount of money for a certain project somewhere in Jamaica in exchange for the people in that area lending their voice to the voice app, so that it's sort of like make some kind of, not necessarily money as individuals, but things that could be for their community, that could be built or improved for their community based on lending their Jamaican voices to the project, So that's all stuff for the future that I've thought about that would be nice to do. And that's kind of looking at this more as a contribution rather than just a business or just, some book to make money or something like that. That's how my thoughts about it have evolved, You
know what I've noticed with the Jamaican patois language itself, it is evolving. And I think recently, well, I don't want to say recently, but I've noticed recently that a lot of people are coming on board like it's a language now, and it's we can see it has its own grammar structure, it has its own with the Cassidy JLU becoming more popular. Now people are realizing that it does have its own alphabet and spelling system, and it has what it takes to be qualified as a language, you know, and a lot of people are coming on board now. So maybe in the future, we'll see it going into a direction where we have lots more resources available, and we have a lot more people wanting to learn this language. Because like I said, I teach Jamaican Power online, and on the app that I use, it's listed as a language there. Jamaican Patois is listed as a language there that you can actually learn. So a lot of people are coming on board. And if we can separate English from Jamaican Patois, a lot of people will understand that when I say certificate in a sentence, when I'm speaking Jamaican Patois, it's not because I don't know that it isn't certificate. It's just that I am speaking Jamaican Patois and not English. So people will understand to separate the languages and not misrepresent people as illiterate or you know, that kind of thing. So so if we separate it, we'll realize that they're two separate entities, and it's not because Jamaicans can't speak English or Jamaicans aren't smart or something like that that we say these words. They're different, you know. But until we make them separate, many people will just think that.
So what? Oh, sorry. No, what do you think then when I mentioned that there's this list in the back of the book of these metatheses and hypercorrection, when, you know, it's sort of, I'm sort of chuckling a little bit, like, you know, hostage is being said as ostrich. Maybe from your perspective, that's kind of making fun of the language or something, if you find that funny, because Jamaicans find it funny, but, you know.
No, I find it funny, and it's not necessarily that I think you're making fun of it, but this is a Jamaican Patois dictionary. So it just makes sense that those are added, because it shows like this is the origin, but this is what we say in Jamaican Patois. That's different. That's like a learning process. So
and there's also the fact that it's not like all Jamaicans call a hostage an ostrich. That might have been said on the news by a few people, and then it kind of, you know, passed around online or something like that.
And with news with news outlets, like I said, Jamaicans like to be entertained, and we find everything funny. So if they go into if the news reporter goes into the community, they will show the most hilarious comments, and that's just, you know, that's just how media works. You find the most sensational thing, and that's what you put out. But like I was saying, it's Jamaican Patois is different from English. So if we can separate the two, the stigma that exists that
that Jamaican is bad English, it's broken English,
will disappear, because now you'll realize, maybe if you don't understand what I'm saying, maybe I'm not speaking English, you know, maybe I'm speaking Jamaican Patois, you just can't speak Jamaican Patois, that's why you don't know what I'm saying, kind of thing. So
and there's also an argument in favor of that for the educational system in Jamaica, because kids are mixing up standard English and Patois together, and so then when it's time to use standard English to write something, they might be more likely to bring in Patois words than if you keep the languages truly separate, you know, the way that many professors and, you know, linguists are suggesting for the education system in Jamaica. If Patois is taught as a second language in the classroom, the purpose is not to teach children how to speak Patois. They already know, they're Jamaican, of course, they grew up with it, you know, it's in their house. But it's to make it clear to them when they go to school that this is not English, so they're not going to confuse it with standard English. They're going to keep it as a second language in their head. It's like, okay, I speak Patois and I speak English, and I don't speak this language that's the two of them combined, you know. Exactly. And then hopefully that improves their English, because they can keep it separate in their mind from the Patois. So what do you think of that?
It would definitely improve their English, I think. And like when the misconception that a lot of Jamaicans have when we say Jamaican Patois should be made an official language, is that they think that we're gonna remove English. We're not saying remove English. It's just saying give Jamaican patois, you know, legitimize it so that we don't think that if somebody's talking Jamaican patois, if they're speaking Jamaican patois, they're them chat bad, or you know. So if we, and when people say Jamaican patois should be taught in schools, I don't think we need to teach Jamaican patois in schools, but
Yeah,
we
not
need
how to speak
the
it. Yeah.
differentiation then.
Right, exactly.
We
Teach the
need
difference
to,
between patois and English. Yeah.
yes.
Well,
Same.
the idea of teaching patois that people get confused about is that it's not to teach how to speak patois. It's more to teach a different way of spelling it so that you can kind of keep it in your mind as a separate. I mean, one of the advantages of using the Cassidy JLU system for Jamaican patois is in schools is that children, it helps them keep it separate from standard English in their minds because it's even spelled differently. And to differentiate the words, you know, to make them more clear how the words are not exactly the same words, even if they might, you know, because when you write them the English way, they actually look visually very similar to the English word. But when you hear a Jamaican say that word, it actually doesn't really sound like that. And yeah, so that's one of the reasons for using this alternative spelling system, right? But another one is just to point out, like you were saying, the differences between the grammar of patois compared to the grammar of English, the sentence structure, right? And how people form statements or ask questions in the two different languages or the two different dialects. And that's, I think, what's meant when you know, people talk about bringing, I mean, it's not my crusade. I don't have a strong opinion on it, but people that I know who do, you know, that's where they're coming from. They're not coming from the angle of teaching Jamaicans patois. They're coming from the angle of showing how it's different from English in terms of structure, in terms of spelling, if that gets accepted to be used in the education system. Yeah.
And I know they have a lot of courses. I know in colleges and in universities they have Jamaican patois courses where they teach the Cassidy JLU spelling, and they teach the grammar and all of those. So it's in higher education, it exists. And I've heard of universities in other countries where they have Jamaican patois courses as well. So little by little, it's becoming more acceptable and more mainstream. And I think in the future, people will be gravitating towards it. And I think it's getting, little by little, people are understanding that, you know what, this is actually, this actually makes sense, and I'm going to learn Jamaican patois, or I'm going to, you know, so maybe in the future there'll be.
It's a lot like Haitian Creole. You know, Haitian Creole has gotten to that stage where it's official and it's a national language, and it's possible to take classes in it at universities and everything like that. So it's foreseeable how Jamaican Creole or Jamaican patois could be in the same situation as Haitian Creole in terms of how it's used and accepted and thought of. Yeah.
All right. So we've gotten quite far, but I have a few more questions that I need to ask you.
Okay.
What advice would you give to people who are out there who are feeling stuck in, like, they want to learn Jamaican patois, they really like the language, they want to learn it, but they feel like they can't get past a certain point? What advice would you give to them?
Well, it depends what it is that they're not getting past, right? If it's the pronunciation or if it's the vocabulary, you know, I mean, you can make it a self-study if you'd like to by listening to things like the Jamaican New Testament. I did a lot of listening to learn patois because it's something you could do while driving or while cooking or while cleaning the kitchen. You can put it on and listen to it. So if I could find an audio version of the Jamaican New Testament, or record on my computer in Audacity, which is a sound recording program, or maybe on your phone, if you have a sound recording program, you could take the sound from a YouTube video and record it on your phone. And, you know, you can start and stop with the pause button so that when somebody says something, you repeat it if you want to practice your pronunciation. You know, if your goal is to try to get better pronunciation, you can try doing that, just repeating after what Jamaican people say in different, you know, online videos or things. And if it's to try to understand vocabulary, then, obviously in combination with resources like the books that have been written, not just mine, but those that have been written that go from Patois to English instead of English to Patois, you can try looking up words if you haven't heard them before. You can try making Jamaican friends, online or something like that. Start reading through comment sections of, dance hall, fans, talking about different dance hall artists. And there's a lot of really good patois in the comment sections under Jamaican videos and things that are for Jamaican people, I don't know. There's so much you could do, right? I mean, those are just some of the things that come to my mind. If you don't have Jamaican people around you in your community, something, right? Trying to think if there's anything else that I did to help me. The main thing for me was the things that I've already said. I mean, I also got my hand on almost every book or resource that I could find, and Larry Chang, as mentioned by you, he has this book, Basic Jamaican. It's in the Cassidy JLU system. So you have to be willing to accept that system if you want to read his book.
I have that book. But that's a very good resource as well.
Yeah. It's a very good one. Yeah. Gosh, I don't know. That's what comes to my mind right now.
Maybe music too. Like listening to the music is one of the greatest resources that most of the people I've spoken to, music has been like one of the main ways they have learned Jamaican power, whether it's reggae music or dancehall music or, so the music is really good as well.
Yeah, as long as you're really focusing on the dialect and the language and trying to look at the lyrics and be like, oh, okay, I see that's how they put the words together, and you kind of learn the song and you sing along to it or you rap along to it and you repeat it. If you're exposed to enough of that, then you'll come across the multitude of different ways that Jamaicans express themselves and stuff through music, through lyrics. Some of the reggae music, the classic old reggae music, is honestly, the lyrics are often in more standard English with just a Jamaican accent. So if you really want to learn patois, thick patois, and I know that Jamaicans will mix the two together, and so sometimes you hear something with some standard English and some patois mixed together and whatnot, and that's kind of what you might say that's patois too, because there's different gradations of patois. But I would say that if you really want to learn the patois that's different as possible from standard English, then you want to go more to dance hall, where patois is used a lot more than standard English, rather than to some of this Bob Marley or old reggae, which has some things in patois, but also a lot in standard English, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's good advice. And I give everybody who come on a quiz. I don't know if I should give you a quiz because you actually wrote the or
I might have forgotten things, I might have forgotten something.
The Jamaican thesaurus, but I'm gonna give you a quiz anyway because most of this conversation was in English. So this is a chance now for show you so you can talk patois on them someday. Yeah.
Okay.
So all right. So the first question. I have about 5 questions that I'm gonna ask you. The first question: what does "fenke" mean? Let me see if "fenke" in a book. Yeah, let me see if I put.
Yeah, "fenke" is a very, very popular word for to put something down or to say it's weak or it's substandard or you say that's no real mechanic. That's a "fenke" mechanic. You know, something like, this person is not really a true whatever. They're just kind of an imitation or a sort of weaker version of it. But fenke, I think, looking at what the word really comes from, it probably comes from the English word finicky, which means sort of, fussy. And I think maybe a person who's finicky is kind of seen as weak, a real man is not finicky, but, oh, this beer is strange. It's, whatever, like who would say that, not a real man, so it came to be seen as kind of unmacho and, weak And so that's where I think the fenke word came from, you know, sort of from
It's
finicky.
actually, I found it in the book, guys. It's under feeble. Pia pia, fenke, cranky,
Yeah.
wenya. So yeah, fenke in the book. So you know what
All
fenke
right.
mean. All right. This isn't in the book. Complete the Jamaican proverb. Wayay no see?
Yai no see?
No. Wayay no see? This is a Jamaican proverb.
Oh, I've heard this before. Yes. Oh, I've heard this before.
Wayay no see?
Something I go tell or something like that. It's like, well, yeah, I know, see, sitting. I can't remember that one day. Can't remember it at all. You know, yeah.
Wayay no see? No leave.
No leap. Okay, no, I haven't heard that. Okay, so
Never
that's
heard
not
this?
familiar to me. Yeah, no, I'm gonna hear that one day.
Wayay no see? No leave.
No leap. Okay, so that means you don't fall in love if you don't see it for yourself. Is that what you mean?
No leap means it not necessarily love, but like scared or
okay.
so where you know it's kind of like where you know can't hurt you kind of thing.
Oh really? Okay. No, I don't know that one. Okay, that's good.
No leap. If you don't know about a thing, it probably won't affect you so much, or you know.
And I should mention that proverbs are not something that the Jamaicasaurus has. That's a whole different book.
There are no
you could make a whole book of proverbs. Yeah.
Yeah, there are no proverbs.
You could make a whole book of proverbs. Yeah.
Right, because there are so many of them. But the Jamaicasaurus is mostly vocabulary, mostly just words. Okay. What does Reggae mean? This is probably in the book. This in the
Reggae, Reggae is everywhere. Yeah, that's
Reggae mean.
Yeah. Covetous, you know, coveting, you know, jealousy, wanting what the other person has, you know. Yeah.
Yes, that's good.
It means red eye. Yeah.
Red eye.
Yeah.
When did Wapi kill Philip?
Wayne dead?
When did Wapi kill Philip?
When did Wapi kill Philip?
No, you know the Jamaican phrase like
yeah, Wapi kill Philip from long time.
From Wapi kill Philip, so I asked you when.
when that happened? When it happened? From remember that one crime we did commit in some parts of Jamaica when one man kill an next man, and that happened a long time ago. Like I don't remember when, but it was in the newspaper. I think I saw it somewhere from an old newspaper, but I don't remember when it was. You tell me. You know.
Nobody don't know.
Oh no, but I think there was a real case. There was a real case where it came from.
It's probably a real case. I just ask it up. You know why I ask you that question? Because I feel like you know everything in that book. So we just see why you get something wrong.
Right. But well, if you want to use it if you just want to use the phrase for how it's used normally, that just means from 19 how long, from God make Adam, from
long time. But the thing is, I actually did a video about when did Wapi kill Philip, and there wasn't like any consistent story. There are about 4 stories going around, so nobody really knows. Some people think that it's an actual case where a man actually killed a man, but then somebody else said that it was a case on Palisados Road where there was like a gruesome crime and one person died because of a Wapi King flip.
Wapi King. I remember hearing that. Yeah,
and then it got corrupted to Wapi kill Philip, and so there are some stories going around, but nobody really knows exactly when or even if there was an actual real story. So I was just being facetious with that question. Nobody knows when.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. And then
from fish shingle house top. That's the next one. Yeah. Middle of that one day. That one. Yeah. cool.
Yeah. We have a lot of things where Jamaican power is so interesting. All
Yeah,
right.
we have enough to stone dog, for example. You can say we have enough of that to kill a dog, to stone a dog with it. Yeah. There's this song by Peter Tosh, Maga Dog, Sorry if a Maga dog and turn around bite you, which is also just a Jamaican folk
Proverb.
saying, right? So
Mhm.
if you feel bad for a person who's suffering, you never know. That doesn't mean they're going to be nice to you, or necessarily appreciate it or whatever. But it's funny because that song is heard so much that in my reggae show in Jamaica, in Hawaii, I played that song, and then no, sorry, I didn't play the song. I was just talking to somebody on the air, and a caller who called in said, "Why are you so MAGA?" They were like a Hawaiian, but they were trying to pretend to, or they were trying to speak Patois or something, right? So they thought that sorry for MAGA dog means if you're sorry for a mean dog, for a dog that's not nice, then he'll bite you. So they thought MAGA meant unfriendly or mean. And this caller thought that something I was saying was not nice or not, you know what I mean? So he was like, "Why are you so MAGA?" And I was like, "I'm skinny." Like, I'm not that skinny. Like, wait, I don't get what he's trying to say. And that it came to me later. And this is one of the things about learning Patois from music, is that you might misinterpret it, if you only got yourself to base it on, right? So you got the big internet out there. So if you're not sure, maybe look in and, here's a recommendation. If you're wondering how Jamaicans say something, you're not sure, try putting it in Google in quotation marks in the phrase that you're thinking, right? And see if nobody write it so, upon line, or see how much answers, you know what I mean? So sometimes, I don't know, that can work if you're really that interested in Patois and exactly how Jamaicans would say something or how they wouldn't say something. If you think, oh, it might be said this way, try putting it in exact quotes in Google and see if that really comes out with results or not. This is the wonderful thing that Jamaican people have, is this knowledge, that's not so easily come by. You've got to have a certain amount of experience culturally to know these things. Yeah.
Because we grew up bilingual without knowing it, so
without knowing that you're bilingual. Yeah.
Yes, because a lot of people don't know that, or don't accept that Jamaican Patois is a language. So when I can just switch, to English, or say one thing in English and then say the same thing again in a Jamaican Patois, just like that, without even skipping a beat. People, we don't know that that's a real skill,
True.
That's a real skill. So yeah.
Yeah, no, for we would all love you can do that. Like, we don't do it.
No people, and we do it with such ease. I can just, how many times I'm just like having a conversation with somebody speaking English, and then I'm on the phone with somebody speaking Jamaican Patois, and then I'm just like flipping between the two, switching between both, and it's nothing. But then it's when I speak to another person who wants to learn Jamaican Patois or something, I realize that it's not something that's easy to do. It's not so.
And that's a gift you have as a Jamaican that all Yardies have, pretty much all. And it's a wonderful thing, and nobody can take that away from you. And no American or other foreigner will ever be able to help people learn Patois or use Patois, in some kind of entertainment or recording or movie or whatever, the way a Jamaican can do it. Them can't take that away from. Oh no, did I say that right? So yeah, I mean that's great. That's a wonderful gift, and you've got it.
So how many you spent a few years? Was it a few years or sometime in Brazil? Did you learn Portuguese?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I learned to speak it quite well, and then I continued using Portuguese for my life from there on. Everywhere I went, I was meeting Brazilians. If I heard somebody speak in some way, and my ear picked up on what they were saying, I'd go up and talk to them, because Brazilians love to talk to each other when they're not in Brazil. To find other Brazilians and make a barbecue and whatever. So yeah, I had just started developing Brazilian friendships ever since I came back from Brazil. So that's why I kind of got these two foreign cultures and languages that I've always been delving into and involved with in terms of friend, circles and everything. And that's the Jamaican patois and the Portuguese. Yeah. And that's why I had, a Jamaican radio show and a Brazilian radio show. Yeah.
And on the Jamaican radio show, you used to speak like Jamaican patois?
Not so much just spontaneously, but more like I did because I love patois, I did some kind of episodes where I would sort of bring up a saying or a word or a phrase. And actually there was a Jamaican woman living on the island, in Honolulu there, and she began doing a guest role on my show every week. And so then it would be she and I together, talking about patois a little bit in the middle of the show, in between songs, and then play some songs that would use that phrase or something like that. Yeah.
And learning Jamaican patois, or obviously you've written a book and you've had the radio show. Did you how would you say that learning the language has improved your life, or what are some of the advantages you've had of learning it?
The biggest advantage has been while traveling in Jamaica by far. It just, I don't know. I could say something like, oh, it makes people less likely to try to take advantage of me or something like that. But I don't want to have that kind of negative attitude. That may be true to some degree because they assume that I've had a long contact with Jamaica if I can speak patois.
You get local price.
Yeah, I mean, people will give me more, bly or whatever term you want to use, But I think more, it's just the human connection with people on that level, just to feel that, it's like the dance analogy that I used earlier. It's wonderful to be in Puerto Rico if you can dance salsa really good with people, that it's like you're in their culture doing what they're doing with them and having that experience, and that feels nice, that's a nice experience. And it also helps you see, this is true of language of anywhere in the world. If you speak the language, or especially if it's an unofficial dialect, you see the way that those people are the same as you ultimately, because they communicate just as effectively in that dialect as you speak your own language. And when you really know where they're coming from because you understand that dialect, then you understand that they're knowledgeable, smart, intelligent people, not some ignorant fool, right? And so knowing patois is kind of like knowing that it's not just uneducated speech, or that these people don't know one thing from another, but it brings about more respect,
Okay. And what's your favorite Jamaican patois word?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I can come up with it just off the top of my head. I could think of a few things. I like moon pan tick, which might be another one of those old things like Dr. Shop, which you wouldn't even hear anymore because it comes from way back. Perhaps nobody has said that since Wapi killed Philip, right?
Right? For Wapi killed Philip,
You want me to tell you what moon pan tick means?
Yeah, go ahead and say it. What moon pan tick means?
It means moon on a stick, right?
Which
Tick
is?
with stick without the S, which is the older way of saying it. And, you could say so moon pan stick or moon pan tick. It's a street light, a street lamp, which I think is a very poetic way of describing a street lamp. It's kind of like a moon up there on the top of a stick.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if people actually called it that or if it was a joke. I heard that in a joke.
Yeah. Have you heard a joke like that? Okay.
Yeah, like that's I heard it in a joke, like the moon pan stick, but I don't know if people actually call this the lights.
Well, there's a similar thing here in Germany. I've been wanting to put together like a blog about how many similarities there are between German and patois. It's amazing. I don't know why that would be per se. I have some guesses about why. There's always been a connection with Germany and Jamaica. A lot of Germans have traveled to Jamaica over the years. There are small German communities in Jamaica of immigrants, or at least a couple of them, in St. Elizabeth, I think. So I don't know if the connections that I sometimes hear between, like, laba laba, meaning gossip.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, laba laba, too much. So, too much chat, too much chatter. Germans say laba.
For
They
the
say
same
laba
meaning?
with the same meaning. I mean, that's just one of many, many things I've come across. But putting that aside for a moment, one similar poetic term in German, kind of like calling a street light a moon on a stick, is that Germans call a light bulb a glowing pear, which I think is cute. That's them say, well, it's in German, of course. They say Glühbirne. Glühbirne means a glowing pear, but that's a kind of a similarly creative way of describing something. So Jamaica has many things like that. Yeah, what else do Jamaicans say that I like?
Jamaican patois is very descriptive. It's a language
Yeah.
that's very, yeah.
It's poetic. It really is poetic. Yeah, I mean, huh. I'm sorry, things are not coming directly to my mind immediately,
Okay.
but
But
yeah.
for now, your favorite one, moon fasting.
Moon Pan Stick. Yeah, that kind of comes to mind because it's so unusual, I mean, if I just open the book, maybe I can remember some things, you know what I mean? Like,
Try imagine how would I put that now, one sentence like, the moon plastic, come on.
if you just used it in a sentence, it would sound strange, right?
Yeah. I've heard it in a joke though, but I've never heard like somebody actually saying it like in a real conversation. Just say that.
I'm
And
sure that
especially
later
really
on,
older people.
yeah. I'm sure that later on, so many things are going to come to my mind that I couldn't think of in the moment, right?
That's fine.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, if you know quite a lot of these words, then it's probably hard to just choose one word.
yeah. I mean, I like when Jamaicans say "tekwe yourself" as a kind of, like shut up, or whatever, It's like, instead of take yourself out of here, remove yourself. I think that's kind of, I like that. Yeah, tekwe yourself. Yeah, I don't know. So.
Yeah, that's a good one. Take away yourself.
Yeah.
The
There's some
song.
funny things like that you can use to say to
Take away
people.
yourself.
What is
You
it?
know
It's a
the
song?
song? Yeah, there's a song. I think it's Mr. Vegas. Mr. Vegas did
Mm.
sing a song with a dance. Take away yourself. So it's now a song, a dance, as well as the word. And the
Okay.
dancers, yeah, it
I don't
was
know.
very popular. Cause you know how in dancehall or in Jamaica in general, like dances, people make up dances like on the fly. Like it's so much. There are so many dances there, and
Oh,
it's usually
yeah.
accompanied with a song or something. But yeah, there is now a song and a dance with called "Take Away Yourself"
That's interesting. No, I
as
haven't
well.
heard that one. Yeah.
It was a long time, probably a good while now. From what we no, that's so long though. I know
Yeah.
from what we kill fill up time, but yeah. All right. Last one, and this one might be a little bit challenging, or might take some time to think about it. But can you recount an interesting experience you had while in Jamaica? Interesting. You can interpret interesting how you want to, funny or whatever. Can you recount an interesting experience you had while in Jamaica, but tell us in Jamaican power?
Yeah, one time I did day not me. I was in me did Mandeville. A wait pan one bus, one minibus, yeah. And one man, yeah. So no, this is actually not a good story to tell. It's let me think of a better situation. Why? A story about something in Jamaica. Okay. So me and my girlfriend did that in Jamaica. And yeah, one more time pan a bus, we had to wait pan a bus. And so we go in a one bus. Yeah. So the man come as we reach the bus parking lot or bus station or what you want call it. One driver come and we say, yeah, coming on my bus, me soon leave out, and Ray. So we're going off in bus. And then we find out, say, that man they're not ready yet, you know, like input we in there and 1, 2, 3, 4 people more than we did already. And so we realize that, you know, 1 hour pass already and we get impatient and one the people them start to fill up the bus, but you know, now it have something like 8 and the maximum at 12 or something, right? And so me tell my girlfriend, say, you know, when Jamaican people get vexed or when them get impatient, them we kind of kiss them teeth, you know, this kind of thing, right? And just as me say that, just like soon as me say it, we start hear the whole of the bus start kiss them teeth, you know. And them never hear me. Because me did a chat with she in our Portuguese. Yeah, and so them couldn't understand we, and then them start kiss them teeth. So yeah, and it's kind of like them start to kiss with them teeth, like say like dog a bark or cat a meow, you know, like it's just like a sound people make, you know. It's just it's funny. Yeah. I'm rusting up at sure.
Yeah, get rusty. You need to find some Jamaican people with them and
yeah, in Germany
practice. Yeah.
Nothing there for Germany, you know. Patois would have to dip online for communicate with or chat with people.
You know, you have only for places to practice nowadays. Let me tell you, like things are getting better. Like it's easier to find resources nowadays, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's an interesting story, and that's true. That's true. When Jamaicans start get impatient or start getting annoyed, or that's the physical. That's how we express it, by hissing our teeth. But it's actually considered bad manners in
like
certain
polite company.
spaces. It's not the most polite thing to do, but it's something that we all do, you know.
Remember say as me did it in 2014 same year, me did a catch or I mean like stay with catch with or block one brethren just round like past Kingston. I just start to go up the hill, go a Blue Mountain them part there, you know. And remember say me did that practice every time as me go up the hill, as me walk up the hill, go in my yard, me did a practice the kiss teeth thing, you know, like pan me one, you know, just got a kiss to the teeth in different kind of way, you know, with sometime on the side of my mouth or sometime a front or with the tongue or without the tongue. I try different way, you know, different way to do it. I mean, never get it yet. You know, yeah. That's not easy sitting for
you know.
Yeah.
You have to do
when you're not born a Jamaican, you know, grow as a picnic in a Jamaica in a yard, you know, or a yard, you can't really just sudden, you know, it's like that's a certain way you have to develop, you know.
Oh gosh, I've never thought about that, you know. I never even realized that hard to do. Wow.
It's all like different language, you know, of certain sound where they make where. If you're not one native speaker, you're not gonna learn that. Never. You never are go really, depend on.
It's kind of like it's kind of like the clicking in what's the language in South Africa called the clicking language. And even in Japan, when they get upset, they have a thing where they click their like a click. I can't do it too. I can't. So I get what you're saying.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I can't do it, but I know what you're talking about. No, I never even the connection between like Jamaicans hissing their teeth and it never
And as I ask different people, as I ask some different people, like, me for kiss for my teeth, me kiss my teeth, you know, and one man say one thing and the next man say something different, and them each have for them own style or them one method or you know them way or them do it. And
some people do it. Like the length, it some people like me, I can't do it for long. Like some people can do it for a good while, like them still a kiss them.
Yeah, them
like,
really make the thing just run out and just run
yes.
down like yeah, true that. Yeah.
If I had to explain to somebody how to do it, I couldn't.
Not bad.
I
Not bad,
couldn't.
yeah.
Put
Like
your
how
teeth
you're
together
physically doing
and-
it with your mouth is
yeah.
hard to explain. Yeah.
Put your teeth together and suck in air. Actually, I don't know.
Yep. No, see, it's like it's starting and
Yeah.
stopping. You know, it's like it's not fluid. It's not.
Use your lips. You have to use your teeth. Our teeth we use.
Yeah, the tongue behind the teeth, like it's not. Yeah, I bet you if I was like walking down the road now and just kept on doing it, at some point I would start to get it a little bit, but it's not easy. No.
True. But your mouth have to move with it too, you know. You can't just like smile and then you have to.
And you can't do it with the cheek. You can't do like. No, it's not gonna work. It's got to be up here. Oh my
This
God,
is new to me. This is new. I never even realized. Wow.
Yeah.
Culture is interesting. Language and culture is so interesting.
Some things, if you don't grow up with them, they just don't physically form in the shape of your mouth. It's, you know, there's a thing with languages that if we learn a language after a certain age, we'll never get the accent perfectly. But if we learn it before that age, we could. And I think it's something in the physical development of our mouth and throat and the structure. It's like it kind of forms itself according to your native language. And, you know, and I don't know if kissing your teeth is truly such a case, but with certain sounds, you know, there's certain things you'll never be able to say it like a native speaker as good as you are at the language, you know. And I think that starts to happen around maybe the age of 10 or something like this. I'm not sure exactly. Yeah.
Okay. But that's so interesting. When you I only realize some things about Jamaican patois when I'm speaking to persons who are learning it. That's when I realize, because we don't think about a lot of things in Jamaica. We don't think about the Jamaican patois structure, because even under some of my YouTube videos, like when I'm explaining like some of the cheat sheets, some of the things that you can use to learn Jamaican patois, I have Jamaicans underneath it writing, I never thought about this before, or wow, there's actually a pattern here, or you know, so we really don't think about certain things because like this.
Yeah, like any native speaker of any language, you don't really know about these things until somebody points it out to you, because you didn't learn it from studying it, you learned it from just being in it. Yeah. One more reason why you could say Jamaican is a language of its own, because it's doing things to you that languages do, right?
Exactly. So where can people find the book, and where can they find you?
The book is on Amazon. That's the only place. So you all you got to do is Google Jamaicasaurus as one word, and it's going to take you to the Amazon page. Or you can go to Amazon and look it up there, you know. But there are different Amazon websites, so you can look it up on the Canadian Amazon or the, you know, British one or the American one or whatever. Amazon they print it to order. So if you order it, they print it and send it to you. And it can go to Jamaica, but it's maybe a little bit of extra postage cost.
Okay. And what about finding you if they want to get in contact?
I haven't made a website for myself and whatnot. I just kind of, because it's just one book, you know, it's not like necessarily that I'm creating a whole world or a business or something like this. I mean, there is a Facebook page that I created for it just to give some information. And so you could look up Jamaicasaurus on Facebook. I tried to make a group to start some discussions, but I didn't really carry it through. You know, I sort of didn't complete that task, so that group never really developed. There are some interesting Facebook groups related to Jamaican patois and Jamaican language that you can find also, that are much more of a community of people posting and discussing things. Mine never really developed into that. Maybe that's something I could work on, you know, is developing more of a community.
You answered all my questions. So do you have any final questions or comments or anything like that?
Well, I just want to say that it's been a long time since I've, you know, been dealing with this. I've kind of put it I only update it once in a while when I come up with things online just to keep it up to date. But other than that, my contact with Jamaican people, with the dialect and stuff is, I've been just focused on Germany. You know, I'm living here and my working here and what I'm doing. And so, you know, if I'm rusty when I speak it, don't take that as a sign of like the quality of the book. Like, you know, I was working on this at a time in my life when I was much more, you know, kind of involved. And of course it's gathering information from all different sources, not dependent just on what I know, you know, it's everything, you know. And so, like I said, I'm more of a compiler than an author in that sense. Yeah, maybe that's only just kind of like a kind of disclaimer or something, you know.
But and to add to your disclaimer, I find the book very useful. So, and I find it so useful that I bought it twice, you know. I bought the Kindle version first, but that was the English spelling, and then I bought the Jamaican Patois. I bought the hard copy of Jamaican spellings, and I find it really useful. So, and I, like I said, I recommend it to all of my students. I've mentioned this book too, and whether or not they bought it, I don't know, but it's, yeah, I think it's a good resource.
Thank you for that. There's another thing that I just thought of, is that if people out there listening are interested in cooperating with me to try to, you know, carry this to the next stage, like I described, you know, through social media, not social media, but crowdfunding and type of things, to try to create an audio-based app, and then maybe something that could be similar to Google Translate or whatnot, and how that could help, you know, Jamaican people, and by raising money for, you know, different projects like I just mentioned, which is just an idea at this point. I don't know if it would work, but if anybody's interested in working on that, you know, maybe I can kind of take up this project again, you know, beyond just the little updates that I do once in a while, to actually getting fully more involved and sort of taking it to that next stage. If you're a Jamaican person, or even if you're not a Jamaican and you think that you could somehow get involved in that type of project and would like to work on it, I'm open to you know, to doing that and developing it further. So if you want to contact me there, you could go to blueparrotlanguage@gmail.com, you know, because originally I was going to do a lot of language related things and put it all under Blue Parrot, but that's basically just a Gmail address that I just use for questions and issues relating to this book. So blueparrotlanguage@gmail.com. Yeah.
I'm going to put all of your information that you mentioned. I'm going to put the Amazon US store link for the book in the description
because you can't link
below.
all of them. So yeah.
Right. So I'm just gonna link the US store, and if you are not in the US and you want to purchase the book, you can just search for the book in your Amazon store. But I'll put a link below for the book, and I'll also put your email address so that if anybody wants to contact you, they can.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah.
All right. So that's all the questions I had, and this was quite the discussion. This was quite the conversation. So, but thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me today, and I really, really appreciate it. And like I said, definitely recommend this book, the Jamaicasaurus, and yeah, thank you.
And
so
the black
much
one, if you want the common spelling version, you know, just know what you want, because you know that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah, there are definitely two different ones. A black one and what color is this? Blue?
Blue. Yeah, there was a couple of comments, or at least one comment in Amazon where somebody bought the wrong one. You know, they wanted common spellings and they got the Cassidy JLU version.
Okay.
And they said, "Oh, this is all spelled wrong." And I'm like, "Well, you should have read the description," you know. So I just want to make sure people know the difference. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, please purchase the right one, the one that you think will be best for you. But yeah, thank you so much for coming in today, and this was fun. This was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, let's keep in touch.
Definitely, most definitely.
Are the bell that? Class done, you know. Take care of yourself, Zine. Please like, share, and subscribe. And please hit that notification bell so that you may be notified every time when I upload video. Also, please follow me on Instagram for daily Jamaican patois vocabulary. Adi bell that? Class done, you know. Take care of yourself, Zine.